In the late 1800s, Kyutaro Abiko left his native Niigata, Japan, with little in his pocket, but with big dreams for a land far across the Pacific Ocean. Little did he know how he would impact generations to come. He not only established the most influential pre-war Japanese-American newspaper, the Nichi Bei Shimbun, in 1899, but Abiko and his wife Yona would become unparalleled community leaders. Kyutaro Abiko established a labor contracting company that brought workers from Japan, 3 farming colonies in the Central Valley of California, a bank, and community directories that would someday help historians piece together maps of Japantowns long after the neighborhoods were gone. Kyutaro Abiko is known by many as the most influential Japanese immigrant to America. He encouraged Issei pioneers to give up on their sojourner dreams of going back to Japan and instead set roots in the United States, their adopted country. The Nichi Bei newspapers not only kept the rapidly growing and geographically dispersed population connected and informed, but it documented its highs and lows, including the impending World War II wartime exclusion. Yona Abiko, the younger sister of Tsuda College founder Umeko Tsuda, was a pioneer in her own right. Together with her husband, she developed a program to send young Nisei to Japan to learn about their cultural heritage. Yona became publisher of the Nichi Bei Shimbun after the death of her husband in 1936. Yona Abiko also was the chief fundraiser for the San Francisco Japanese YWCA. Decades later, her diary served as key evidence in the legal battle to keep the property in community hands. Today, it is the home of Nihon Machi Little Friends, a multicultural childcare agency. The Abiko family left a strong foundation for future generations, which continued with their son, Yasuo, who helped to restart the Nichi Bei Times after World War II with his wife Lily.
When we started in 46, they said, "How long do you expect to last?" And we said, "Well, we'll continue as long as there's people want to read the paper."
I see. Was that because there's a integration? Because
well, they said, "How many people are you going to serve?" These say we're getting old and be less out readers, but I guess those readers we lost, we've made up with people coming from Japan since then. So I imagine we're going to be here for some time, except all of us are getting old. I don't know how long we're going to hold out.
The Nichi Bei Foundation is the proud beneficiary of this legacy as we continue to keep the Japanese American community connected, informed, and empowered now and for future generations. How can your legacy become a part of ours? To help ensure long-term sustainability of our community-serving institution, we are proud to announce the Nichi Bei Legacy Society. Through a legacy gift to the Nichi Bei Foundation, you can help ensure that succeeding generations of Japanese Americans will remain connected and informed. The Nichi Bei Foundation is one of the oldest legacy organizations in the Japanese American community, yet it is also the youngest nonprofit organization as well. Because we rose from the ashes of the historic Nichi Bei Times in 2009, we missed a lot of support from the Nisei generation. As we strive to preserve our culture and community while documenting our history for future generations, we hope that your legacy will become a part of ours. What is planned giving? What is the Nichi Bei Legacy Society? For a brief explanation, we enlisted the help of Nichi Bei Foundation board member Lori Shigekuni and estate planning attorney Yuka Ohashi Merritt.
Hello, I'm Lori Shigekuni, and I've been a member of the Nichi Bei board for 3.5 years. It's been my privilege to be a part of the board. And I want to tell you that as part of the board, naturally, I like to give to the Nichi Bei Day of Giving. This year, instead of giving to the Day of Giving, I'm going to give a legacy gift. So I have invited my friend Yuka Ohashi Merritt, who's another estate planning lawyer, to come and talk to you and to explain about what a legacy gift is. I think it's a great idea. I have one son. He's Yonsei on one side and Rokusei on the other side. And so he is not that familiar with the Japanese American community now, but I just want to have a way to just pass on to him the stories and the rich legacy that my grandparents and great-grandparents have built up over time. So I think that the Nichi Bei is a really good entry point to be able to connect through culture or through organizations and be able to enter into the Nichi Bei experience. And so I want Yuka to explain a little bit about what's involved with a legacy gift.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. And my name again is Yuka Ohashi Merritt. I have a practice in San Mateo. I'm an attorney. I specialize in trust and estate. And I do estate planning for my clients as well as probate and then trust administration and estate settlement. So I can talk about various ways of giving to a charitable organization like Nichi Bei Foundation. And this is legacy gifting that you'd like to talk about. So,
yes.
First thing I can talk about is the use of trust, if you'd like me to.
Oh, yes, thank you. I have a trust.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to explain about that.
Yeah, it's very common for people in California especially to set up a revocable living trust. So if you have one already, then what you could do is to add an amendment to your trust. And typically you want to go back to your attorney who created your trust and ask him or her to do this. And then as an amendment, there are two ways you can do. One is a specific gift or a specific bequest that you can mention a specific amount of cash that you like to give to Nichi Bei Foundation and add that to your trust. Or you can add Nichi Bei Foundation as part of your residue, which will be percentages of your distribution. So those are the two ways to add.
I'm planning to do a specific gift for mine. I'm going to do mine myself, but could you explain a little bit about the cost for doing an amendment to your trust?
Okay. So like I said, it's a good idea to go back to your attorney who created this trust for you. And then that could be very simple. If you go to another different attorney, which you can, but that attorney may need to redo the whole trust, which is called restatement rather than amendment. So if you have to go back to your original attorney, that would be probably more cost efficient. And typically attorneys charge hourly rate for doing something like this. And then if it's a simple amendment, then it should not take more than 2 or 3 hours, I would imagine. And so that depends on the attorney's hourly rate, and then you would pay that fee.
Okay, thank you. Could you explain a little bit about a beneficiary designation?
Yeah, so that's another way to give a gift as a legacy gifting. If you have financial accounts, like retirement accounts, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, then one thing you could do is to add Nichi Bei Foundation as a beneficiary. And then so as a beneficiary, when you pass away, then the Nichi Bei Foundation would receive the balance in that account. So that's one simple way to do this, legacy gifting. And what I've heard from my tax accountant people is that if the charity is a beneficiary of your retirement account, then the charity, upon receipt of your retirement account balance, the charity would not be paying tax on it. Whereas if the beneficiary is an individual, then the retirement account would be subject to tax as a beneficiary takes money out from the retirement account. So that would be a difference, and that could be very beneficial way of, on an efficient, tax-efficient way of giving.
Okay, and what about a will? Could you explain a little bit about gifts through a will?
Okay, sure. So that's the third way, and using a will, it's definitely possible, but I tend to avoid using a will because it could be subject to probate, and then some people have this misunderstanding that if you have a will, then your assets would not go through probate, but that's not true. Even if you have a will, your assets could be subject to probate depending on the amount and then how the assets are structured. So you could certainly add Nichi Bei Foundation as part of your beneficiary under your will, but I would tend to go with the first two options.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you so much for your time today, Yuka.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you helping the listeners at the Nichi Bei understand about legacy gifting.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. My pleasure. Nice to be here talking to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We are honored that the grandchildren of Nichi Bei Shimbun publishers Kyutaro and Yona Abiko, who are also the daughters of Nichi Bei Times pioneers Yasuo and Lily Abiko, are joining the Nichi Bei Legacy Society as charter members. Joan Ishihara, Grace Abiko, and Beth Abiko Gibson explain why they think it's important to make a legacy gift to strengthen and maintain an institution deeply rooted in their family's tradition of service.
I think the Legacy Society is important so the Nichi Bei Foundation can continue to publish the Nichi Bei Weekly for generations to come. I'd like to support the Legacy Society because where else in one publication can we get such a comprehensive source of news, articles, and columns about events, Japanese culture, and history that impact the lives of Japanese Americans? There is a long history in our family with the Nichi Bei beginning in 1899 when our grandfather Kyutaro Abiko first published the Nichi Bei Shimbun to help the Nisei immigrants with important information as they settled in America. When Kyutaro Abiko passed away in 1936, our grandmother Yona Abiko ran the newspaper until her health declined in 1941. At that time, our father, Yasuo Abiko, who was the English editor, took over running the Nichi Bei. Following the Executive Order 9066, and then with the forced evacuation approaching in 1942, the Nichi Bei Shimbun disseminated necessary information to the Japanese community during that time of uncertainty. The newspaper was published right up until our father and mother were sent to Tanfran Assembly Center. In order for them to keep publishing, they were the last group of evacuees to leave San Francisco. At the end of the war, a few months after returning to San Francisco, our father and a few others restarted the Nichi Bei Times in Japantown on Sutter Street near Laguna. The newspaper provided sources of information and news to the Issei and Nisei as they returned to their hometowns or resettled in other parts of the country. Today, the Nichi Bei Weekly continues to inform, educate, and entertain us as it piques our interest to learn more about ourselves and our culture. I think our Abiko grandparents and parents would be proud to see how far their efforts have evolved and expanded due to the diligence of Kenji Taguma, the Nichi Bei Foundation staff and board. For these reasons, I support the Nichi Bei Foundation Legacy Society for the benefit of all of our children and grandchildren.
Continuing the legacy of my parents and grandparents to facilitate communication in the Japanese community, Japanese American community. So it's very worthwhile to to participate in the legacy gift?
Yeah, I really think that one word that comes to mind as far as the legacy project and today is connection. That it has helped many generations of people to connect with all the resources out there. That's what Kitaro wanted to do, is help the other Issei connect with the world out there beyond Japantown, and similarly, our dad continued his legacy, Kitaro's gift. So it's just so important that we all connect
The Japanese American community is evolving, and the Nichi Bei Foundation is needed to help preserve and pass on Japanese American culture, history, and community values to future generations. We hope you will consider making your legacy a part of ours by joining the Nichi Bei Legacy Society. For more information, please visit www.nichibei.org/legacy society. Thank you.